Hey guys, what's up? John here, back at you with another YouTube video. Just sitting here playing my ESP LTD EC1000 Vintage Black ebony fretboard. I got some Pedalboard evergreen pickups in it, nice low output. Pretty much that. It's pretty much stock. I mean, change out the pots and knobs and everything, but that's not what we're here for today. We're here to talk about pedalboard order. Now, why is this such a huge topic? Why do people give advice on this a lot? It's because people want to know how to do or what to do when it comes to certain pedals. Because sometimes you get a pedal and you're like, oh man, this sounds great on its own. Then you put it in your pedalboard and you're like, whoa, what just happened? So I'm here to explain a few things to you. Okay, so I'm gonna flip the camera over and we're gonna check it out. Okay, so here we have my pedalboard. Well, I'm missing a couple pedals that are gonna be here. Anyway, so what are some things to think about when it comes to pedalboards, pedalboard order, stuff like that? Well, first thing is you want to make sure you have the right amount of space. And you want to make sure that, you know, you're going to be able to reach every single pedal, whatever pedal it is, with your foot or, you know, what you ever need to do with it. Now, the reason why I say that is, hold on, over here, for example, I have a PV 2-button foot switch. But you see how large this thing is. It's a great foot switch. I mean, it's plastic, but it actually is very durable. I mean, they do work very well. But this thing is equivalent to 3 pedals. So what I did is I took the innards of this foot switch and then I rehoused it. I think I forgot if I used Small Bear Electronics or Mammoth Electronics. One of them offered enclosures. So what I did is I asked for an enclosure with a single out. That's actually some glue, and then two holes for the LEDs and 2 holes for the foot switches. And then what I can do is, and then I put it right here, and this switches my channels on my amp, no problem, and switches on and off the reverb. So that was the decision. That's what I mean by you have to make sure whatever pedal board you have the right amount of space. Now, I didn't want to go to an extreme, you know, large pedal board because I still like to have, personally speaking, I still like to have a smaller space. I did have a large one at one point. It was way too big. I just felt like I was carrying around a monstrosity. So that comes up to my next topic is when you're dealing with your size of your pedal board, you also have to make sure you get a proper isolated power supply that will also power your pedals. Now, this is the Walrus Audio Phoenix. It's isolated clean power supply. Now, as you could tell, it's got 2 rows here. Oh, let's see if it'll my camera focus. It's got 2 rows of different power on there, okay? You got some that can go 100 milliamps, 18 to 9 volt, 9 volts, 9 volt with 300 milliamps. Now, the best way to describe what are milliamps is honestly, think about it like water, okay? And I mean, I know it's a weird comparison because you're talking about electronics and water, but let's take this for example, right? Most of your gain pedals, right? They rely on, say, 30, anywhere from 8 to 30 something milliamps. So what it is that this pedal is plugged in the back, which is plugged into a 9 volt 100 milliamp. So basically what it's saying is that this power supply is pushing out 100 milliamps of water in a way, and this pedal's only drinking, say, about 30 milliamps, give or take. I mean, I think this might be 28 milliamps, but you get the point. So what happens is that, and actually this happened to me at Guitar Center, is they went to hook up one of my pedals, and it was actually a Walrus Audio It was a Julia chorus. They wanted to make sure it was working, and they had it plugged into a Voodoo Labs power supply that was already being cranked out by a bunch of digital pedals, and all those pedals were soaking up the milliamps. So what it was is that the Julia chorus was trying to get more water than what it was pushing out. So, for example, this Dispatch Master by Earthquaker, this actually I think requires more up towards the 100 milliamp side. So instead of plugging it into a 100 milliamp, you definitely want to plug into a 300 milliamp. And then voltage. So what voltage is what the pedal requires to run. So if your pedal says 9 volts on it, don't put a 12 or an 18 in there. You're going to fry the pedal. If your pedal, like the EP booster, says, oh, you're allowed to go up to 18 volts, you can have which right now this pedal is on a 918 volts. So I could switch this. And now it's running 18 volts, and now my EP booster will have 18 volts applying to it. Or if I switch it back, now I'll have 9. Now some pedals, like, hold on, sorry, the Electro-Harmonix OD glove actually have an internal dip switch inside that emulates your pedal running at 18 volts. What it does is it does an internal jump where it actually doubles the charge that's going to it. So internally it's running 18 volts. But you do not plug an 18 volt power supply into it or else you'll fry the pedal. Same thing. So, and then some pedals, like the also coveted HM2 by Boss, this is a made in Japan one, so this is in 1984. This thing actually sounds awesome for that chainsaw. This requires 10 volts, or 12 volts, I'm sorry, 12 volts. Now, you ask, well, what happens if I don't run enough voltage into the pedal, or what happens if I don't run enough milliamps into the pedal? Well, if you don't run enough voltage into the pedal, like if you're to run a 9 volt into this, it's not going to sound right because you're starving the circuit. If you don't run enough milliamps into it, you could actually hurt the circuit. So let's take, for example, we'll go back to the Dispatch Master, right? So Dispatch Master, like I said, I think it requires a little over 100 milliamps. I could be wrong. I can't remember, but I know for a fact that it's a digital pedal. Digital pedals sometimes require a little more milliamps, so I plug into 300 as a just in case. So if this requires, say, 102, or let's say it requires even 200 milliamps. Let's just take that for an example. Let's say this requires 200 milliamps, which I know it doesn't, but follow me here. If you plug only 100 milliamps into it, you could actually damage the circuit because it's looking to get that fuel. But on the flip side, if you plug in a 300 milliamp and it only requires 100 milliamps, you're only pouring in enough that you need, and it will only take what it needs. It only takes what it needs, okay? So that is something to remember. Now, I know we're talking about pedal board order, but I think it's a proper pedal board needs to have a proper power supply, and you need to understand what you're looking for in a power supply. And what's the difference between isolated power supply and daisy chaining? Well, isolated power supply means each one of these is what it says it is. So this one is a 9 volt 300 milliamp. This one's also a 9 volt 300 milliamp. It's not saying both of these are 300 milliamps. It's saying, so what, meaning that, oh, if you plug in 2 pedals, that all of a sudden really only what's coming out of here is 150 or 200. No, this alone is 300 milliamps. This alone is 300 milliamps. This alone is 100, so on and so forth. It's saying that each individual one will properly let out whatever it's saying it will let out. It's not going to say, oh, that's where you come with daisy chaining. Now, daisy chaining is saying, okay, I got a 300 milliamp coming out, and it's going to this pedal, but I have a splitter that will actually let it go to this pedal, and this pedal. So that's 3 pedals, okay? So now it's saying that 300 milliamps is coming out to this. So let's say this requires 28, or let's just take nice round numbers. So let's say this requires 30, and this requires 30, and this requires 30. Well, that's 90 milliamps between the 3 of them, right? Okay, so that's pushing out 300 milliamps. So this is only drinking 90 milliamp or 30 milliamps. This is only drinking 30, and this is only drinking 30. You get 90. You see my point? So when you daisy chain, you could daisy chain these 3 pedals together. You'll be fine. But the flip side of daisy chaining is sometimes if this pedal doesn't like sharing power, say with this pedal or this pedal, it'll actually create a noise in the circuit. Okay, so daisy chaining is one of those things that if you got like 2 or 3 pedals and you have, say, like one of those one spots that have like 1,000 or 2,000 milliamps, then you should be okay. But if you're planning on getting serious with your pedal board, isolated power supply, isolated power coming out is the best way to go. Now, let's talk about pedal board order. What should you put first? What should you put last? What is what? Okay? Now, so in this case, I actually have a Fortin Zool as my first pedal. Now, why do I have a noise gate as my first pedal? Well, my guitar goes straight into this. So this is taking my direct signal from my guitar. So what that means is that I can actually set this relatively low, and it actually cuts out a fair amount of noise. For example, I got my my ESP still plugged in, right? Okay. Now there is some amp hiss noise, right? But watch this. See that? See how it's seeing the direct signal from my guitar. So because it's seeing the direct signal from my guitar, it's able to clamp down properly, and it's able to sustain. I'm able to hit a note and let this pedal will let my guitar sustain until it doesn't see my guitar signal anymore, and then it cuts it. Now, some people will put a noise gate last. What I find with putting a noise gate first versus last, this then has to run through all of these pedals. So let's say your noise gate was here. You would have to have all of these gain pedals or whatever you have going into this, which you might have to then crank it up here or here, and then that would change your sustain. So having a noise gate isn't the worst thing in the world. Some people like, oh, noise gates are the worst. You know what? If you have it proper, you have it set relatively lower, very, on the conservative side, you have it set on the lower side, it will do what it's supposed to do. Look at your guitar signal, clamp it when it's not there, let it open when it starts playing, and you won't have an issue. Now, relatively after the Zool, I like to run any type of pitch pedals, whether it's, sorry about that pause. Usually I like to have any type of pitch pedal here. Now usually I have my Digitech Whammy Ricochet or Whammy pedal right here. I am letting a friend borrow it because he really was interested in that style of pedal. So I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So he's borrowing it right now. So that's why mine's currently not here. Now, the reason why I like to have a whammy first is that I want the whammy to hear what my guitar is doing. Like the noise gate, I want to hear what it's doing, and that effect, whether I'm pitch shifting, is going to get a direct line from my guitar, and then it's going to be able to affect my gain pedals. Now, you're going to notice that here. Effect, okay? Now, typically after a pitch type pedal, now, I will say there's no technical right or wrong answer here. If you like having your pitch pedal after all your gain pedals, that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. I just liked having my pitch pedal right up front where my guitar, it's going to hear my guitar right away and nothing's going to interfere it with my guitar signal, because I want that pitch pedal to get the cleanest signal I can. Next is a controversial thing, not controversial in the bad way, just controversial in a good, in a what do you like better? Some people like having a wah before their gain pedals. Some people like having the wah after their gain pedals. What, if you guys want, go to, I think it's Brian Wampler. Go to Brian Wampler, his page, sorry. He has a great demo, or it's on his podcast, I can't remember, where he does a wah before versus a wah after. Now, what it is that a wah before is going to change the filtering, but that filtering is going to stay distorted if your distortions are after, or your gain pedals are after. If your wah is after your gain pedals, your signal's going to distort, and then it's going to hit the wah as it filters your signal, okay? So, I'm not a big wah person, but some people like having their wah be first, and I think there's some really cool things with having your wah first, because you get that wah, wah, wah with the distorted sound. Where I've also tried it after, and I thought it was actually really cool because it's moving. It's like taking everything. It's like taking a handful of stuff and then moving your wah. So that's pretty cool. Wah before, wah after your gain pedals. No right or wrong answer. Now, another pedal I would have if I was to do a pedal after the wah would maybe be a compressor. Now, I don't like compressors. I like having the dynamics in my tone, in my sound. I like, playing softer when I want to play soft, louder when I want to play louder. A compressor kind of compresses your signal so that if you're playing quiet, it kind of bumps up that volume a little bit, and if you're playing loud, it helps keep that volume down. So it kind of gives you a nice even shelf of what you're doing. Now, some people like their compressor before their gains because it compresses the signal a little bit more, and gain pedals technically compress your signal as well. Some people like their compressor after because it actually does a really cool boost thing. If you really want to hear something like that, go to that pedal show. They do an awesome demo on how to use a compressor before or after. Now, so we got noise gate, some type of modulation, or not modulation, some type of pitch shifting, wah, and then compressor, right? Where would a volume pedal fit in all this? Technically, I would have a volume pedal way out here if I had a volume pedal, but that's a whole different story because I would use the volume pedal to completely mute the signal going to the board. But that's a different story. After that, after all, we have our noise gate, our pitch shifting, our whammy, or pitch shifting whammy, and our compressor and the wah all right there. Honestly, having some type of boost right up front is a really nice thing. Some people like to have the boost after. It depends on how you run the boost. If you're going to run a boost as you want to boost the signal and you don't want to boost the signal, honestly, I would have the boost first. Because then you can actually boost other gain pedals, okay? And then you won't have to worry about it. Now, if you're going to use a boost as an always-on circuit, which in turn kind of acts as like a buffer in your signal, I would actually use this boost after all my gain pedals and before any time-based modulation or any other kind of funky type pedals, other pitch shifting pedals. So, depending on how you want to use your boost, Put it before if you wanted to boost the other pedals. So if you want to make this fuzz have more hair, or if you want to make the overdrive sound like it's got kicked in the face, put the boost first. If you want your boost to be your always on pedal because you feel, oh, it fattens up everything, makes everything really nice and creamy, it widens the mid-range in a way I like, it gives me a nice top end, it boosts up the lows, try that after your gain pedals, because I'll tell you, that makes a huge difference, and especially how your gain pedals react to it. Now, once you figure it out, if you like your boost in front or behind, this one I would say is a little more critical. Believe it or not, even though they're higher gain, I would do fuzz pedals first. Any type of fuzz pedal first. Now, fuzz pedals can have different type of clipping diodes inside. For example, the hoof has a hybrid of a germanium and silicone diodes internally. Now, the black ash, they didn't quite specify. I kind of feel like it might be germanium, but I'm not 100% sure. The reason why I say have them up front is your fuzz pedals are sometimes your most meticulous of your guitar signal, because they really react if you have a hotter pickup going into them or a cooler pickup going into them, meaning higher output, lower output. They really react if you have a buffered pedal in front of them. If you don't have a buffered pedal in front of them, they even react if you have a wah in front of it or don't. And it is really imperative that you would want to put your fuzzes first, because they really react better. Now, if you want to boost your fuzz pedals like I do, that's okay. You can have a boost in front. This is a true bypass boost. There's nothing really too crazy in the EP boost circuit where it would really mess with the two pedals all so much. But I actually found that this pedal doesn't like being behind this pedal. So if I was to switch these, they don't like it. This one doesn't react the same, and this one doesn't react the same. So I actually had to put my black ash first, then to the hoof. Then what I actually do is I actually run, after that, I kind of go lower gain to higher gain. So meaning I go to an overdrive, and then I go to distortion. So the reason why I also have an overdrive after my fuzz is actually these two pedals together is what gives me that super high, in your face, almost Black Sabbath style tone. I don't know if you guys saw my last video where I actually demoed the Railhammer pickups. That was my last video. The pedals that I was using in the beginning of the video and playing all those Sabbathy tones were this. So how I have them set up is, actually the fuzz, I was trying something earlier, but typically something like this, when the shift is this way, it actually lets in more mids, boost up the level just a little bit. Then I have this in mode 3, have the gain back, the level up, and then the tone right about there, which kind of cuts a little bit more bass, which is nice. And then these two pedals together in this, when you stack them, it has that like Sabbath tone on steroids, in my opinion. That's just my straight opinion, which is really cool. Now, gain stacking is a whole nother section. It'll take a lot more time, and I'm already about over 20 minutes into this video, so I would like to wrap this video up so I don't keep chatting off your ears. So I like having my overdrive pedal after my hoof, because I can use the overdrive as an overdrive if I want, or I can have the hoof or the black ash into the overdrive, the plums, and it will like create this boost in this really cool way. Then I have the plums going into the Electro Foods pedal, Nepenthes. Oh my goodness, they're gonna kill me over there. I'm sorry, guys. Nepenthes, that's what it is. It's a flower. Nepenthes distortion. It's a op amp based distortion. Now, I was trying something. Usually I have the gain a little bit higher, and usually the boost is off. Anyways, the boost only boosts the pedal. I actually have a demo on this earlier into my videos. Anyways, so I like having my distortion after the plums, because then the plums affects the penthes in a different way than if I was to have them flipped. So it kind of tightens it up a little bit in a cool way, adds this mid-range, fattens it up. It's really cool. But I like having sometimes a lower gain into a higher gain if I want to use them together. If not, I just use this alone, and you use this alone. The plums alone, or this alone. Now, another topic that we're going to get into is buffer versus true bypass. I'm not going to talk too much about it. All I know is that I am not anti-buffer in any way. Although all these pedals are true bypass, including the Zool over here, and the Whammy Ricochet is actually true bypass as well. When your guitar runs through all these true bypass pedals, you start getting signal degradation, meaning you lose some high end, maybe you lose a little volume, and you actually start losing some of your overall tone. Now, to counteract all this, I actually run then into this little guy right here, and I'll cover that. This is a TC Electronic Bonafide buffer. Now, I personally love having a buffer after my gain pedals. Because see, the thing is though, is that your gain pedals, and you can get into input and output impedance. So your gain pedal pushes so many impedance through the circuit, which is basically like pushing so much, almost, if you want to think about it, water again. It says like almost like a squirt gun that you really have charged up, right? So you take a squirt gun, you really pump it, and then you start squirting it out, and that stream is very fast, very powerful. Well, what happens after that squirt gun goes through your circuit, it's like almost like if the squirt gun then was losing its pressure, and then you have to go and pump it up again. So sometimes as it comes out, it's losing that pressure. So then it goes into next pedal, next pedal, next pedal. So you're not only signal degradation between all these patch cables and all this run, but you're also losing a little bit of your signal. So what the buffer does is it takes my signal and actually boosts it back out. It kind of gives my signal life again. It says, hey, you're not getting all your highs, you're not getting all your lows. We're going to re-pump up your signal like we're going to re-pump up the squirt gun, and we're going to shoot it back out. So after this is optional. This is depending also on how many pedals you had. If I only had these two pedals, maybe I wouldn't use the buffer. But honestly, having a standalone buffer in your board, or even a pedal with a buffer in the board. So if I say had the HM2 right here, and then I had the penthes go into the HM2 and then into the MXR, that would work too, because the Boss offer it's something special, but it's okay buffer in there, and it does the job. Or most of your Ibanez Tube Screamers and the Maxon OD808, not the OD9. The OD9 they actually did mod to be true bypass, but the Maxon OD808 has a buffer in it. But there are other people who explain buffer versus not buffered a lot better than I do, but I'm telling you that a buffer after gain pedals makes a world of a difference. Now, after you got all your gain, buffer, stuff like that, then you'd want to go into your modulation style pedals. So right now I have an MXR Phase 95, which allows you to switch between the Phase 90, the Phase 45, the script mode, and the non-script mode, which is cool. So depending on the light that you have will depend on which mode you have it in. You're going to time-based modulations are a good thing to do before your delay reverbs. Now this is a delay and reverb in one. Now the reason why I say that is, like I said with everything else, it's how one pedal affects the other pedal. A lot of times your heavy delay reverb pedals almost swallow modulation style pedals in some way. In the beginning of this video, I was playing a little thing. That was actually these two pedals together. But if I was to put this one after, all you would mostly hear the phase a lot. And if I put it before, you could still hear the phase, but it actually mellows it out a little bit with the delay reverb. So then comes the biggest thing. Do I put delay first or do I put reverb first? I always like having delay first and reverb last. So I actually have this reverb pedal here, the Abominable Electronics Hunting Pools. It's a cavernous type reverb pedal. I usually actually have that here, but I'm in the process of moving stuff also around on my pedal board, and letting people borrow stuff on my pedal board because they want to try some stuff. So usually I would have that here, and then I would go after that. Now, after the reverb, I would probably do tremolo. If it's a harmonic or or standard tremolo or harmonic tremolo, I would do a tremolo after that. Now, why would you do a tremolo after everything? If you ever tried any of the old Vox amps or even the newer Vox amps, if you tried any of the Vox amps or the old Fender amps or anything of that nature, those amps, whenever you look at the amp, they always have the reverb, then tremolo. And why is that? Because the tremolo is taking your signal and doing this. It's going wow, 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 right? So it's letting your signal in, it's letting your signal out. And when you have other pedals that are messing up that signal, so if I had the tremolo over here and then I was running the tremolo into these, your tremolo would get lost. I've done it before. I put my tremolo here and I was like, wow, I can't even hear the tremolo on. If you have the tremolo after, it makes a world of the difference. Now, this is also a little controversial. I have my tuner last in my pedal board. I was always one to have my tuner first because I thought it was better. But then I actually, having a buffer in the tuner and having the option where once I click it on, it mutes the whole board. So for example, whole board's muted now, you know? So I kind of like having the tuner last. It mutes my entire board, so if any pedal's on, I can click that on, quiet. The other thing is, though, is I have another buffer in this pedal that I actually have on. Now, you kind of wonder, oh, don't you just have a buffer over here? Yes, I do, but it depends on how many pedals I have here. So this buffer, what this buffer is doing is it's buffering the signal from all these gain and then of course pitch shifting and then my noise suppressor or noise gate. It's buffering all these pedals into my modulation pedals or reverb pedals or anything else. So if I was to say have the phase 90 over here, or even if I was to put a chorus, the phase 95, the dispatch master, and then say a tremolo, that would be another pretty big cable run, where then this buffer is actually buffering straight to my cable and going straight to the amp. And it's actually giving the amp almost I've done both, and it really does work. So here's the deal. If you like this video, let me know. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. Or I actually have an Instagram. If you want to go follow it, you can. Or that's the best way you can get a hold of me as well. So if you go to my Instagram, you type in the same name that's down below in my my full name right there. If you type in that full name into Instagram, you should find me. The picture on there should be this tattoo. So that's the picture that's on that in my Instagram page. Follow me. Tell me what you think. If you have further questions about pedal boards, let me know. You know, I love questions, comments, anything. If you feel like this video could do anything better, also let me know. Thanks, guys. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Be safe. Be happy. Take care. Bye, guys.